I wish I could say something that was classy and inspirational, but that just wouldn't be our style.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Steel Sanctuary Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Rivero. I'm here with Bob Quinn, and we've got our very special guest, Tony Pauline, our go-to draft expert from Sportskeeda. Tony, how you doing?
I'm okay. Good to be back with you.
Good to have you back. Well, let's start talking quarterbacks right off the bat. I think it took us all by surprise that Jalen Milroe got invited to the first round of the NFL draft. I see a lot of sites having him second, third round grades. How do you feel about that, Tony? Do you have a higher grade than that on him?
Well, it depends on which Tony Pauline you're talking to. If you're talking about the Tony Pauline before the 2024 season and the guy really through October, I was a Jalen Milroe fan. I went on record saying that I thought that Jalen Milroe could make a Jaden Daniels type of ascension through the draft boards because I was ridiculously high on him. When you look at him from a physical traits point of view, he's better than any quarterback in this draft. If you look at his arm strength, you look at his athleticism, you look at his ability to pick up yardage with his legs, no quarterback in this draft matches Jalen Milroe. The problem was after that game against Georgia, where Alabama got to a huge lead, the defense gave up a lot of points, and then he drove them back and hit that 75-yard pass down the field to beat Georgia. Since that game, he's gone in reverse. In fact, if you watch Milroe at the end of the season, when Alabama was winning, it was because Milroe was winning with his feet, not with his arm. And then he goes to the Senior Bowl, and he wasn't throwing the ball more than 10 or 15 yards. He wasn't letting it loose downfield, and then he's not good at the combine. And it seemed to me that he lost all confidence in his passing. So, I mean, I could understand the love for Milroe because I actually was part of that love through October. I still struggle to see how he's going to be a first-round pick unless it's a team, say, late in the first round, the Rams or somebody like that who want to select him and then nurture him for the future, or a team that trades back into the bottom part of round one to take him. Jalen Milroe has got incredible upside, and Jalen Milroe at his best is probably better. If he's as good, if not better, than any quarterback in this draft. The problem is there's just been a lot of inconsistency in his game.
Yeah, I mean, athletically, he's top of the class. There's no doubt about it. It's just all the things you brought up, a little bit inconsistent with his accuracy and stuff like that. Colin Cowherd made a big stir in Steelers land by, I don't know if you saw it, but he said that a scout told him the Steelers are definitely picking Milroe if he's there at 21. Now you put that together with him going to the draft, and you start putting pieces together. It seems possible, at least, that the Steelers might consider him at 21.
You know, after the disaster that was Kenny Pickett, I'd be surprised. The Steelers are a smart organization. I know fans are down on them at times, but they're a smart organization. And after the disaster of Kenny Pickett, although it's a different situation, I just don't think that they would reach for a quarterback. Now, here we are. It's April 7th, and you don't really know who the Steelers' starting quarterback is going to be. They lost out on Justin Fields, who they wanted to bring back. Russell Wilson signs with the Giants. The entire world is waiting for Aaron Rodgers' decision once again. So I guess anything is possible. But I'd be very surprised if the Steelers sat there and took Jalen Milroe with that pick in round one. Maybe they trade down to the bottom part of round one because a team, one of those last 4 or 5 picks, I wrote about this at Sportskeeda, wants to move up and get one of the pass rushers. If the pass rushers start to come off the board, I'd be surprised if they take him at 21, though.
Tony, I have a question for you. So with Milroe, who I'm not been a huge fan of, I get it, all the physical tools, but do you feel for the kid that he's better served going to a Miami, a San Francisco, the Rams, to let him sit and truly develop behind offensive-minded head coach for a year, maybe even 2?
Well, the problem is if you go to Miami or San Francisco, you may be sitting there for a while because they got younger quarterbacks. But like I said, could I see the Los Angeles Rams with a brilliant offensive mind and a veteran quarterback that's there for a couple more years taking a player like Jalen Milroe? I could absolutely see it, and I think it would be to Milroe's advantage. I think one of the I think Milroe would have benefited, and I forget his name. I apologize. But the offensive coordinator for the Washington Huskies, who helped develop Michael Penix, who was with the Seattle Seahawks last year, is now with the Alabama Crimson Tide. And I forget the coach's name. I apologize. If he had been there in 2024, we may have seen a different Jalen Milroe.
Yeah. Let's switch gears. Shedeur Sanders. I've seen him go second, third overall, all the way dropping out of the first round. Where do you see him falling in this draft?
He's not going second or third. I mean, you look at the teams that draft second and third, the Cleveland Browns and then the New York Giants. That's a coaching staff. That's a general manager that has a very short leash. In the case of the Cleveland Browns, they got to win this year. In the case of the New York Giants, if they don't win, they have to play very competitive football and show major signs of progress, which means that they have to get a player with the second or third pick that's going to provide immediate impact in 2025, not 2 or 3 years down the road. And Shedeur Sanders just isn't going to do that. I think if the New Orleans Saints don't take him at 9, he could slide a long way. Now, there are teams. Well, you got to go back. You go back to January when if you follow my reporting, when I was at the Shrine Bowl, teams were telling me then, and I was reporting it, that hands down, even though a lot of people had Shedeur Sanders as their number one quarterback, Cam Ward was the number one quarterback in this year's draft. And I think the situation for Shedeur Sanders just got worse and worse and worse. To answer your question, if he doesn't go number 9 to the New Orleans Saints, he could slide, deep into the first round. And maybe it's a situation like I just mentioned with Jalen Milroe, where a team at the top of round 2 moves back into round 1 to get him. There are some teams that do not have a first round grade on Shedeur Sanders. And the fact is this, if you look at the Shedeur Sanders film in 2024, it was not as good. In fact, it was worse in some parts than it was in 2023. He did not show a lot of progress in his game the way, say, Cam Ward did. He's fundamentally, it's a disaster. You're going to work with him from the ground up. He doesn't throw with proper footwork. He releases the ball off his back foot. He runs in reverse when he is being when he is being rushed by opponents, which is the worst thing you could do. So he needs a lot of work on his game, which is why a team selecting early that has a head coach and a general manager on the short leash, probably are not going to take him, because he's not going to be NFL ready. He's not going to be ready to play in the NFL September of 2025.
Bob and I were talking about this. It's like a best case scenario for the Steelers. If he falls past New Orleans and they're looking to trade down with Shedeur falling, some of those teams that maybe passed on him in the early rounds will come up and give us a good haul for Shedeur at 21. To me, that's a great scenario for the Steelers if he falls and gets close to 21.
Or, the Steelers themselves could draft him. If they feel that he's got, if they feel that he can develop him. There's a lot going on with Shedeur Sanders. And, people sometimes take it the wrong way. I think somebody put it best to me. They said, he wasn't a winning quarterback. He didn't, a Quinn Ewers type of quarterback in the Big 12, which is not a good conference. He also has been coached by his father throughout, high school or whatever it was. He's been coached by his father for 3 years in college, and you don't know how he's going to take to other coaching. And then, as I reported again back at the Shrine Bowl, there's the Deion factor. Deion, if he doesn't like things that are, he doesn't like the things that are going on with his son, he's going to be vocal about it. I mean, as any parent would. But then most parents don't have the bully pulpit of being the head coach of Colorado and having people stick microphones in our faces.
Right. Tony, do you think with his relationship with Tom Brady and the fact that he worked with him, that the Raiders are going to be hard pressed to pass on him, because they can let him sit behind Geno for a year or two, which Tom Brady is on record thinking he thinks more quarterbacks should sit.
Right, as Tom Brady sat, basically. I mean, Tom Brady was basically forced onto the field after the starter got injured. I think the Raiders are probably looking more for a quarterback at the top of round 2. Could they take Shedeur Sanders and let him develop? Possibly, if they think Sanders is that guy. If they think that, he's got enough upside. He's not a big quarterback, Sanders, physically big. He doesn't have a really big arm. So there's a lot of questions there about his next level potential.
All right, let's talk about a few other quarterbacks that have been mentioned in the first round. It's Jackson Dart, Tyler Shuck. I think that's about it. And then, of course, Milroe getting his latest buzz. What do you think about those guys? I've seen Jackson Dart to New Orleans. I've seen Tyler Shuck up high. What do you think about those two guys?
I think either of those guys in the first round is insane. I mean, Jackson Dart is not a top 15 quarterback. Jackson Dart is a very good game manager. Jackson Dart is accurate. Jackson Dart also comes out of Lane Kiffin's system, and you don't know what you're getting with that type of quarterback at the next level. I think Jackson Dart could be a good quarterback in the NFL, but he's going to need time. He's going to need right coaching, and I wouldn't take him in the first round. Tyler Shuck, again, I mean, yeah, Shuck is coming off a great season. You got to look at the fact that he was outstanding as a redshirt freshman at Oregon. Then he had 4 years at Texas Tech where he was either hurt or inconsistent and played very poor football. And then he had a great year at Louisville. So and he's a seventh-year senior. So which Tyler Shuck are you getting? I mean, you hope you get the guy that you saw last year at Louisville and 6 years ago at Oregon. But there's no definite about that. I think both of those guys are top of round 2 material. There's a lot of belief within scouting circles that Tyler Shuck, when you look at all the quarterbacks not named Cam Ward, he's the guy that may give you the earliest returns if you need somebody to produce. But there's probably more question marks about Tyler Shuck than there are about Shedeur Sanders, I apologize, because of the fact that, there's 4 missing years there where people who knew about him, like myself, people who watched him, were expecting big things, yet he was unable to deliver.
We've heard that Arthur Smith really likes him, the offensive coordinator for the Steelers. So he's kind of an interesting guy we got to keep an eye on. The Steelers don't have a second-round pick. They traded it. So 21 seems a little rich for him. Maybe they could trade back in. Who knows? But
I have a question about a guy who's really a really popular name on our podcast, and I've liked him in all my mock drafts. Jordan Palmer was on the Rich Eisen show, and he said Kyle McCord is actually the best quarterback in the draft. I don't know if I'd go that far, but what do you think about getting him on day 3?
If he's there, I mean, he's going to go either early 4th round. He could go late 3rd round. Kyle McCord is a lot like Will Howard, same type of quarterback in the sense that they got great physical skills. McCord's got a tremendous arm. He's got an explosive release. But dating back to his days at Ohio State, he's very slow moving his head off the primary target. He was very slow last year. He improved last year from 2023, where at Ohio State, he would just stare down the primary target and not move his head. Last year, he did move his head. He's a little bit slower about it. He needs to learn to put touch on passes because sometimes he's trying to throw the ball through receivers rather than to receivers. I actually spoke with McCord at length at the Shrine Bowl. And I asked him about, watching Ohio State and their run through the title game. And he was very upfront. He was very honest. He wasn't spiteful or anything. We spoke a lot about that. I think McCord has got great physical skills or outstanding physical skills. He's got a lot of upside, but he's going to need a lot of work on his game. And the problem is when it comes to a quarterback being slow, moving his head off the primary target, that can sometimes be a very tough thing to coach.
All right, let's switch gears to running backs. Bob and I absolutely love Omarion Hampton from North Carolina. Really good back. What are the chances he's still around at 21?
99%. I mean, I don't know of too many teams before the 21st pick that are going to take Omarion Hampton. I mean, it's going to be Ashton Genty. I like Omarion Hampton, but this is a tremendous running back class. So why would you take a running back at 17 or 16 or something like that when you can get an outstanding running back on day 2? I would be surprised if Hampton is not available to the Steelers with the 21st pick, and I think that could be the earliest he goes.
All right, let's talk about some of that depth because the Steelers don't pick again until the middle of 3rd round. What do you think? Like DJ Giddens, they've had Bashir Tootin in for a visit today. As a matter of fact, who else they have? They had Caleb Johnson in for a visit. Any of those guys around in back end of round 3?
Caleb Johnson, no. Giddens and Tootin, I believe so. I mean, they're different types of backs. Giddens is a bigger guy, more of an interior runner who's got decent speed, while Tootin is a smaller guy who's more of your, perimeter runner, exterior ball carrier, can create on the inside, has got home run hitting speed, played last year with a bad ankle. I reported that from the Senior Bowl. So if you watch the film last year, you probably, and you're grading him just off of last year, you're probably selling him a little bit short because of that bad ankle. Can also catch the ball well out of the backfield. So I don't know. I think Giddens, who I think will be available until the opening part of day 3, is more of your potential feature runner, an interior runner, probably better for the Steelers system, where Tootin is more of a situational back.
What about Dylan Sampson? What do you think of him?
An explosive guy who is an outstanding outstanding pass catcher out of the backfield. A good running back, but he's got to improve his running skills, his instincts, his decision making. He flashes ability as a ball carrier, but he doesn't have a lot of experience. I mean, he was basically a rotational guy last year at Tennessee. They had that back that went in the 3rd round. And then he took over as the number 1 back this year. So obviously he doesn't have a lot of carries, doesn't have a lot of experience, comes with some upside. Not the biggest guy in the world, 5'8", 200 pounds. But I think he's more of a situational back than someone you're going to, continually give the ball to on a snap in, snap out basis.
Gotcha. Is there any name we're not thinking of in the mid to late rounds? Like maybe a Damian Martinez?
There you go. You beat to it. Yeah. And Martinez, in my opinion, is going to be the most underrated, underdrafted back in this year's class. I mean, 5'11 and a half, 217 pounds. He can probably play in excess of 220. Transferred to Miami this year, and then what happened at Miami, they had a stable of running backs, so he wasn't the feature runner, and he was rotated in and out. But when he was given the ball, he did a great job. You go back and you watch the Oregon State film from 2023, he was outstanding. He's a guy who can grind it out on the inside, at times impossible to tackle, but he also has the agility and speed to turn the corner. And, while playing at Miami this year, hurt his draft stock, no doubt about it, because he came into the season as one of the higher rated backs by NFL scouts. It probably saved some wear and tear on his body because he was sharing the football. He doesn't come out of the season with 250 carries. I absolutely love Damian Martinez. I think he's going to be great value outside the top 45. I think he's definitely a Steelers type of back. I think he fits that system to a T. And if they can get him in the 3rd round, I would be shocked that does not fill the hole at running back for them.
Yeah. Is that a concern at all with Asha Genti, all the carries and touches that he had this season and last season? I mean, he was their entire offense pretty much.
Yeah, he was. And I mean, it's got to be taken into the equation, but the fact is he wasn't injured. He was taking these carries, and he was the main guy on offense, and they knew we were getting the ball, but he wasn't missing games because of nicks and bruises or bad ankles or high ankle sprains or, hamstring issues. So it's something to be mindful of because you don't know how much tread is left on the tire, but I don't think it's going to be a problem because he was in there every game.
What do you think about his ball security issues or the fact that people are making, like I'm making a lot of it, the ball security issues?
Yeah, I'm not really that concerned. I'm pulling my, it's got shorter arms, which probably lead to the ball security issue. He's not a true short yardage back. I'm not really all that concerned about it as compared to some other running backs. I think what happens now, moving forward, is people tend to look for holes in players' games and manufacture issues that aren't real issues.
Gotcha.
All right, let's flip over to defensive tackle. This is one of the Steelers' really big needs. This could definitely be their 1st round pick. Out of where the Steelers draft at 21, it's Grant, Walter Nolan, or Derek Harmon. Which one of those 3 do you like the best?
Well, I've done 6 mock drafts since October, and I've had them taking, I think, Harmon twice, Nolan twice, and Grant 1. So,
yeah, it's the most likely scenario is one of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I have Kenneth Grant rated the highest of all 3 because he's the biggest. He's the stoutest. He's incredibly athletic for a guy that's 331 pounds. I mean, you look at him versus Mason Graham, where Graham was primarily a gap penetrator, which Grant could do. Grant was also able to get down the line of scrimmage and out into space to make plays. I think, he may be a good 1-gap nose tackle. You can also use him as a 2-gap end. Walter Nolan is probably the playmaker of the bunch. I mean, he is explosive. He's a guy who consistently penetrates the line of scrimmage and gets in the backfield to either have a tackle for loss or a sack. He's very athletic. This guy get a little bit stronger. He got a little bit exposed at the Senior Bowl for 3 days of practice there. And I think Derek Harmon also has a good amount of upside. I think he's just got to get a little bit stronger in his game. But you look at his size, 6'4.5", 313 pounds. You look at his athleticism, and you can see him putting on another 10 pounds. So I don't think you can go wrong with any of those three players.
Do you make anything of the kind of character red flags with Nolan and not working out at either the combine or his pro day? Do you make anything of that?
There's at least a dozen of those guys. I mean, Ashton Jeanty didn't work out at combine or pro day. Tyler Warren didn't work out at combine or pro day. Travis Hunter didn't work out at combine or pro day. Did receiver drills at pro day, but he didn't work out. Tyler Warren hasn't caught a pass in the postseason, as far as I know. So I mean, if you're gonna knock Walter Nolan, who played at the Senior Bowl for 3 days, for that, there's a long list of guys that you can add to that.
Tony, what about in like mid rounds? Like I'm a big fan of JJ Pegas. I love Joshua Farmer. I don't think no way he gets to the third round. Alfred Collins, guys like that who may be available to the Steelers in the third round. And if you're bringing in Aaron Rodgers, maybe go a weapon in the first round and a DT in the third.
I do think Joshua Farmer could be there for them in the third round. He's a guy who's has definitely improved his draft stock. I mean, with Joshua Farmer, again, go back to what I said about Tyler Shuck. Which Joshua Farmer you're getting? I mean, Joshua Farmer showed flashes of ability the past 2 years at Florida State, was never a consistent force, and then went and blew up the Senior Bowl. I mean, most scouts thought coming into the process he's a fifth or sixth rounder, but he's just done so well, and you saw that consistency at the Senior Bowl and in the pre-draft process that you hope to see from Joshua Farmer. Again, what type of player are they looking for? I like Jordan Phillips of Maryland. I mean, a guy who
that's a good one.
If you watch Maryland, they played a three-man line. He controlled the middle of that defensive line. People will knock him, I think justifiably so, for not having great production. But then he goes to the Shrine Bowl. They stick him out at defensive end, and he's able to rush the passer. I mean, he showed a lot of playmaking ability. You talk about J.J. Pegues. I like Yahya Black in spots. I thought Yahya Black coming into the season was going to be a big-time prospect, but he's sort of like the Joshua Farmer in the sense that we never saw a lot of consistency from him. You go down the line, I like and this is a mid-day three, if not bottom half of day three guy, Jamari Caldwell of Oregon, Derek Harmon's teammate, a guy who 6'2", 332 pounds, plays big athletic football. He's quick. He's explosive. Just want to see him play to 332 pounds. Walter Brinson's another guy, a guy who I think is moving up draft boards. You're talking about a fourth round prospect, 6'5", 315 pounds, very athletic. Was really used in that system at Georgia, which rotated its players, especially on the inside. But in the postseason, at the Shrine Bowl, in the Combine, has really established himself as someone on the rise and someone that can play on Sunday, just may need a little bit of time.
The Steelers had Caldwell in for a visit, so that's interesting that you bring him up. That's a good name to.
I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
There's two guys I love who I think will be 6th, 7th round picks, maybe a 5th now. Tonka Hemingway, Cameron Jackson. Curious if you think either one of those guys could continue to rise up the board.
Well, the thing about Tonka Hemingway is where does he fit in the Steelers system? Because he's a smaller guy. He's more of a three-technique guy. Now, if you're playing a three-man front in a one-gap system, maybe he fits. I don't know about that. Cam Jackson's got the size. He's got the strength. He's shown the ability in spurts, which is why he's going to be a late-round pick. He's got an upside. He just may need a boot in the rear end.
Thanks. Let's flip over to corner now. That's another big need for the Steelers.
As it always is, right?
Yeah, always. we feel like we talk about it every year.
Now.
Yeah, we got Darius Slay for 1 year maybe. Jahdae Barron, I wanted to ask you about him first. Played slot early on in his career, was outside this year. Is he better suited to play in the slot in the NFL? He's a little bit of a smaller guy.
Yeah, he's played slot. He played nickel for most of his career. But then again, you look at most depth charts, and nickelback is a starting position these days. Because you put three cornerbacks on the field. I mean, My belief is, you're going to get him knowing that you've got a nickel back, and maybe you try him on the outside. And if he fails on the outside, then you push him on the inside. He's not a guy that lacks for confidence. He's an aggressive cornerback. He's got a lot of physical skill. He doesn't get down on himself, which is important at the position. 21, I have him a little bit later than that, but if they feel that he's that guy, maybe they go with it. I'll just say that for the most part, the Steelers' history with cornerbacks in the first round has not been real good. So maybe you say, "Hey, listen, let's look someplace else."
What's the latest on Siobhan Ravel? I'm sorry, Bob. What's the latest with him? Okay, the injury and he obviously hasn't worked out through the process.
Well, yeah, as you can't expect him to. I mean, he had the injury was in October. Yeah. It was in practice. So I mean, why? And he came into the pre-draft process, came into the season, 6'2", 194 pounds. Everyone knew he's athletic. I mean, he looks and he plays like a taller cornerback who runs in the low 4.4s, high 4.3s. I think Ravel could have been a very early pick if he hadn't gotten injured, because what I liked about him was in the early part of 2024, he was showing a lot of progress in his game, especially with the ability to make plays with his back to the ball. He wasn't doing a lot of face guarding. But again, you've got the injury, and it's not just the injury, it's the fact that the injury halted his development, which is why I think he's going to fall out of the first round.
Do you think Trey Amos is probably the most polished boundary corner who's available at this point because of Ravel's injury?
At times, yeah. I mean, I would say Will Johnson off the 2023 film, but then Will Johnson 2024 had a turf toe injury and he didn't show up at times. New defensive coordinator out there at Michigan. I like Trey Amos. He's got size. He's got speed. I think more than 50% of the time when he was in man coverage, he'd get his head back around to track the pass in the air. That's something that I've always looked for. You don't want to see a guy who does a lot of face guarding. You don't want to see a guy who plays the receiver's hands. He does a good job of it. He's got a high upside, maybe some bumps in the road before he's ready to put on the field in a consistent manner on Sunday.
Who's your top corners, like your top three for this draft?
Will Johnson, who I mentioned, Jahdae Barron, who you mentioned, and Shannon Ravel of East Carolina, who we also spoke about. After that, it's Hairston, Trey Amos, and then Benjamin Morrison, who's kind of fallen off because of the injury, because of average play before he got injured at Notre Dame last season.
A lot of injuries at corner this year, huh?
A lot of injuries, a lot of mediocre play, and even a lot of, you've had some great testing, but you've also had some guys like Azari Thomas of Florida State, runs a 4.58 during pro day. You've got Kobe Bryant of Kansas, who was good on the field, who was outstanding at the Senior Bowl, struggled getting underneath 4.55. So it's a variety of things which has really brought the cornerback class down.
Do you get the sense, like when I watch Thomas's film, and I'm in Jacksonville, so I actually see a lot of FSU games. My daughter goes there. Do you feel like he's Joey Porter III? Because I kind of do. I look at him and I see Joey Porter, handsy, a lot of the same traits.
It's funny about Thomas is I was not very high on him coming into the Senior Bowl because I saw a guy who was making plays after the fact. I saw a guy who rarely turned his head back around, tracked the pass in the air, and then he just blew me away at the Senior Bowl, 3 days of practice. I mean, he was physical, which he was at Florida State. He was aggressive. He was making a lot of positive plays with good ball skills, not just physically beating down opponents, which kind of, it increased his stock on my board anyway. Now, you got to find a happy medium. It's like Walter Nolan. Walter Nolan was terrible, was not good during 3 days of Senior Bowl practice. So you can't just downgrade him based off of that, especially when you look at the film where he's constantly making plays. It's the same situation with Thomas. Obviously, the Senior Bowl shows that he has that ability to make plays. The film shows he needs work to do it more on a consistent basis. And you'll have to take what you will from the fact that he was a 4.58 40 guy at the corner during pro day. Timed at 4.58, but to his credit, he does play faster.
One last cornerback I want to ask about, Darian Porter. He's the one that tested like off the charts at the combine. What do you think about him?
needs a lot of work on his game. He's got great size. He's got great speed. Was basically coming in the season was graded as a street free agent. A guy who I think will need a lot of work before you can put him before he's ready to be a starter on Sunday. Right now, I have him as a fourth, early fifth round pick. Could go earlier because of the size speed numbers. Football coaches do exactly that. They see a guy like Darian Porter, 6'3", 195, runs a 4.3. We're like, we're going to coach him to be a real great cornerback on Sunday. A lot of times it doesn't happen. So if he gets drafted within the top 100, it's based on the physical skills, not the film.
All right, a couple last position groups here. Wide receiver is a big one for the Steelers. I know I saw you write, and a lot of people reported that the Steelers met with Emeka Egbuka at Ohio State, had a private dinner with him. What's your feelings on Egbuka?
Mixed. I mean, Egbuka was a guy who came up big for Ohio State, but never really was a consistent dominant force. Was basically far and away the number 2 receiver to Marvin Harrison 2 seasons ago, far and away the number 2 receiver to Jeremiah Smith. So that is concerning to me that he was never really able to elevate his game and become a main focus in that offense week in and week out. Now, that said, during the stretch in the college football playoffs, when Ohio State needed a consistent play, needed a first down or something, they went to Egbuka and he responded. He's got decent size. He doesn't have great size. He's got decent speed. He doesn't have great speed. I struggle to see him as anything more than a number 3 at the next level, maybe a number 2. Very consistent catching the ball, good pass catching fundamentals. I just like to see him elevate his play more on a week in, week out basis.
Do you think if he falls to 21, can the Steelers really, after passing on Brian Thomas last year, could they pass on Matthew Golden?
Well, I mean, it's apples and oranges. I think Thomas was more polished. Obviously, he was bigger. He was more of a consistent pass-catching threat. I thought that Thomas was really underrated last year to the point where, people had a big gap between him and Neighbors and Marvin Harrison. I didn't have as big a gap. I think with Matthew Golden, he needs a lot of work on this game. He's a great route runner. He's showing ability as a pass catcher. Obviously ran the 4.29 at the combine. There's a lot of upside there, but I think when you compare him to Brian Thomas was the more polished NFL-ready receiver, where I think with Matthew Golden, there's going to be more bumps in the road.
Gotcha. The 2 Iowa State kids, Jalen Noel and Higgins. Higgins has been rising, right? He's. I've heard some people say he's got first-round possibilities. What do you think about that?
I don't think he's got first-round possibilities. But, you talk to a zillion people, and everybody's got – Jackson Dart's going to be a top 10 pick, right? I like Jaden Higgins. Jaden Higgins is a consistent, big-bodied pass catcher who does the little things well, who wins out for the contested throw. He's got it going on between his ears. He knows how to find the soft spot in the defense, so he doesn't always have to battle for the pass. And then, he runs a 4.47 at the combine. So you're thinking you're getting a slower possession receiver, and then he runs 4.47. So, physically, he has that speed. You just have to teach him to transition that speed onto the football field. That's why people like him. He's showing himself more and more to be the total package. Noel is more of your smaller, speedier receiver. The problem with Noel is he needs space to work. You're going to have to line him up in the slot. You're going to have to line him up backed off the line of scrimmage to keep him off of press coverage. He's got great speed. He's a good route runner. Drops passes. Does not win out for the contested throw, which is a concern, which basically means, you can't use him on every down basis, or you can't line him up on every down basis the way you would Jaden Higgins. You're going to have to make sure he's got free space to work, Jalen Noel.
Okay. How do you feel about Noel versus a guy like Torrey Horton?
Yeah, I'm not a big Torrey Horton guy. I mean, the injuries, the marginal production. Horton is a little bit bigger. He's 6'2 and a half, 196 pounds. He's a little bit stouter. Ran exceptionally well at the combine. I understand a lot of people like Torrey Horton. It just never did it for me. I don't know why. And I've watched a lot of film on it. He's a 6 year. This is his second year. He went back in 2024 when he was expected to enter the 2024 draft. So, and then he got injured. He only played about a half dozen games last year, if I remember off the top of my head. I mean, I like him. I just don't love him as much as many people. I think that to get back to your point, because I know I'm rambling, with
That's
Noel's more of your downfield threat. I mean, he's the guy who's going
Right.
to stretch the defense. He runs 4.39. He plays faster, but he needs space to work. Where Horton, you can be able to get him over the middle of the receiver and over the middle of the field and come away with contested receptions.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking from a fit from the Steelers' perspective, because assuming they keep Pickens, you got Pickens and Metcalf to do that downfield stuff, and they kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, Calvin Austin. I mean, I love the effort, but I mean, the bottom
Right.
line is he's 4'11",
Right.
and coming across the middle, if he does catch it, he's going to get killed.
Yeah.
Well, then you look at guys in day 3 like Andrew Armstrong of Arkansas, Isaac
Yep.
Tesla of Arkansas, maybe Savion Williams of TCU. If you're looking for your bigger, stouter, over the middle type guy, there'll be receivers there, I believe, in the middle of day 3 that you can reach out to.
Tony, I watched Dante Thornton yesterday.
Yeah.
I watched some clips of him. Man,
Yeah.
his highlight reel is unbelievable. What do you think about him?
I have him as a 3rd-round pick. I absolutely love the guy. I mean, 6'4.5", 205 pounds, 4.30. You mentioned it. I mean, he's got the size, he's got the height, and he plays fast. He's constantly beating opponents down the field. When I watched him on film, I was absolutely blown away. Now he's got to improve his route running. He's got to expand his route running tree, but he catches the ball exceptionally well. He also plays like a bigger receiver who runs a 4.3. So I think Thornton, he's not polished, he's not complete, but he's got great upside, and he's shown a lot of ability on film, which is why I have him as a 3rd-round pick.
He reminds me of Martavis Bryant. He's got a little Martavis Bryant in him. He was really, really impressive when I watched him.
Hopefully, he
couple
doesn't
guys that
have
have
the baggage of Martavis Bryant.
Yeah, without the baggage, hopefully, for sure. Isaiah Bond, he's kind of disappeared off. No one's talking about Isaiah Bond anymore. What's your take on him?
I think he should just shut his mouth and play football. He's making all these ridiculous predictions. I mean, it was outplayed. Forget about the combine. He was outplayed by Golden and everybody else at Texas last year. You expected him to take his game to the next level after he transferred from Alabama, and I didn't see it. I saw a guy who was hot and cold, very streaky, guy who drop passes, a guy who struggles for the contested catch. So I think Isaiah Bond, it's a situation where he was probably overrated in the early part of the process, and now he's seeking the level he should be at.
Yep. You got any more, Bob, before we move on to that?
Well, only thing I was going to ask, not so much about the wide receivers. Position aside, it seems like a starter. We've heard the term starter draft. We made the point on the wide receivers. It's a wide receiver 2 draft. Is there any guy, regardless of position, who sticks out to you like this guy's going to be a star?
Well, we just mentioned one. In any position, I would say Dante Thornton is one of them. I think people are underrating him. I thought Damian Martinez is another one. We've already mentioned him. I've said all along that I think the best tight ends from this year's class are going to come from day 2. It's not going to be Tyler Warren. It's not going to be Colston Loveland. It's going to be Elijah Arroyo. It's going to be Aronde Gatson, who people forget about, from Syracuse, the receiver turned tight end. Could be Joshua Simon. So I think those guys will, 2 or 3 years down the road, turn out to be exceptional players from this year's draft. I think Dorian Strong of Virginia Tech is going to be a great late day 2 pick at the cornerback position. Cody Simon, the linebacker, is maybe he's a late 3rd-round pick, maybe he's an early 4th-round pick. But you watch that Ohio State game film, and people talk about the JT Tuimoloas, people talk about the Jack Sawyers. It was Cody Simon who was constantly making plays against the run, against the pass, down in, down out. I also like Tyleik Williams. You talk about your top defensive tackles, and I think Tyleik Williams is probably going to go in the 2nd round. But as far as I'm concerned, he's a 1st-round prospect. I mean, if you watched his development over the past 2 years at Ohio State, you watch the college football playoffs. Yeah, Jack Sawyer gets all the credit for that great play against Texas, but it was Tyleik Williams, who was constantly being double teamed in the middle of that Ohio State line, even though he's getting penetration, and allowing his teammates around him to make plays on the football, to make big plays on the football.
Gotcha.
I think that's a lot of. Go ahead, Bob.
The one guy I've been saying who's to me is a unicorn, and I watch his tape, and Dave points out he took some, but just you can't deny the size, the speed. Nick Emenwari from South Carolina. Is he just a unicorn you just pick and put in the middle of your defense and just let things work it out?
Well, what do you mean by unicorn? I don't know. What do you mean by that?
6'3", that ridiculous speed, 4'3". Obviously he's a safety, but he could play nickel corner with that speed.
Could also play linebacker. Yeah. I mean, let's look at Nick Emenwari versus Shamar Stewart. Okay, both of these guys are Olympic-type athletes. Both of these guys just blew up the combine. They tested better than anybody thought possible. I think with Emenwari, though, is Emenwari shows that athleticism on the football field. He's not just fast in a straight line downhill. He's fast laterally. He gets to the ball quickly. He makes plays against the run and pass. He had 4 interceptions last season, and they weren't just opportunistic picks. They were because of excellent ball skills. So I think he's a really good athlete. That is also a terrific football player. Now, 220 pounds. Is he a traditional free safety? Can you play him over the slot receiver? Is he loose enough in the hips and in that body to transition? As opposed to, say, Shamar Stewart, who had 1.5 sacks, and in my opinion is very stiff, can't change direction, has got Vernon Golston written all over him. Vernon Golston of Ohio State, former top 10 pick by the New York Jets. So I think Emenwari is more than just an Olympic-type athlete. I think he's a real good football player that, a creative defensive coordinator. You mentioned safety. You could also line him up as outside linebacker on occasion. He's going to match up against the tight end. He shows the ability to make a lot of plays in center field. There's a lot of different things you can do with him.
I've comped him to like a faster version of Kyle Hamilton.
I think that's true. Kyle, almost 4 tenths faster than Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah.
I mean,
laughing Kyle Hamilton.
Listen, I was very critical of Kyle Hamilton throughout that process when people were talking about him being the first pick of the draft. I am very generous because when I look at Emenwari for 2 years now, I see a real good football player that's shown consistent development in his game.
I just have one more for you, Tony. We talked about Kieran Lacey out of LSU.
Yeah.
I know he's got all kinds of issues off the field. Does he get drafted? What's
the problem? You'll have to wait and see what the situation is over the next 10 days. I mean, Lael Collins. You remember that name, Lael Collins? Lael Collins was a guy who literally the day before the draft, it came out that the police just wanted to talk to him. Okay, he wasn't a suspect. They just wanted to talk to him, and he went from a potential top 60 pick to undrafted.
Yep.
I like Kieran Lacey. I think he's a terrific wide receiver, but now he is a alleged criminal action, whatever you want to call it. I'm sorry, I'm not getting the right term out there, but he's the main focus of an investigation.
Yep.
Does he get drafted? I hope he does. I mean, this is America. You're supposed to be innocent till proven guilty, and he's an outstanding receiver. But the thing that will hurt you more than anything else in the NFL draft is the unknown. I'd mentioned Lael Collins. We all remember what happened with Tunzel when that video came out an hour before the draft. And here you are with Lacey, where he is the center of an investigation, which could cause him legal problems or legal issues. Listen, if I'm a team, and he's there in the 6th round, I'm rolling the dice on him because the reward outweighs the risk.
Absolutely. A lot of great information, Tony, as always. Thanks a lot for coming on again. You're our favorite guest by far when it comes to the draft. We get so much feedback from you. It's great. You can find Tony at Sportskeeda, his on X at Tony Pauline. Anything else, Bob, before we get out of here?
No, thanks a lot to Tony for coming on and doing this. It's great information.
Really appreciate it. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks for having me back again. Good luck to the Steelers in the draft. Everybody enjoy it.
Thank you.
You can nothing over till it's over.
What's that from, the 80s?
It's probably in the 70s.
This is disappointing as hell.
Now what the fuck are we supposed to do?
Yo, come back now, you hear?
Probably worth the Google.
Saw that coming.